everyone, welcome to Multiplying Fractions Review with Ms. Gillum. We're going to start at the very beginning of multiplying fractions and work our way to mixed numbers. I know most of us know the very beginning stuff, but I want to make sure I cover it for everyone so that when they get to the mixed numbers, they understand what's happening. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to start back in 4th grade, which I actually used to teach 4th grade, and how we started working with fractions and multiplication is we started with a whole number times a fraction. So if you do 4 times 1/3, we know that means I have 4 groups of 1/3, which we can say is 4/3. And as you can see, the denominator did not change because if you wrote 4 wholes as a fraction, that would be 4 over 1. And so when we're multiplying that, when we think about what we've learned in 6th grade so far, we've learned that we multiply the top and the top and the bottom, and that's where the 4/3 comes. But this is an improper fraction. We do not leave fractions improper, just like you do not leave your house dressed improper, hopefully. So if you have 4/3, you would have to think to make a whole, that would be 3/3 would make a whole. So if I take 3/3 out of that, I would have 1 whole, and then I would have 1/3 left over. So 1 1/3 would be your final answer for this problem. Okay, let's do one more. So let's do 6 times 3/4. So if we think of this as 6 groups of 3/4, we know that will end up being 18/4. And some of you may have noticed this connection that we're just multiplying the top. And the reason we're doing this is because 6 wholes is 6 over 1 times 3/4. And then you follow the rules of multiplying straight across. So that'd be 18/4. But as we know, this is an improper fraction. So we need to find out how many times 4 will go into 18. Well, if I think 4 times 4 is 16, that would be as close as I can get to 18. So it goes in there 4 whole times. And if I take 16 out of that 18, I have 2/4. Or you may simplify that down to 4 1/2. When you do your quizzes today, if you're in my class, then make sure if the question tells you to simplify, you simplify your answer. Okay, let's move on. So let's look at a visual of multiplying fractions. What does this look like and why do we multiply straight across? So this is a picture of 2/5 times 2/3. Here's your fifths this direction, and your thirds are this direction. And so you can see they colored in 2/5, and then they also colored in the 2/3. So a great way to think of this is 2/3 of 2/5. Well, 2/3 of the 2/5 would fall right here, and we would say that is 4 out of the entire photo. Not just the colored ones, because we're looking at this whole thing as a whole, because the box is the whole, because we only have 2/5 and 2/3. So if I look at my entire whole, we have 3 and 5, which is the 4/15. So that is where the multiplying straight across comes from, is because this is the overlapping of the two fractions. Let's look at another example of a fraction times a fraction. So we have 2/5 times 11/12. And normally we would just multiply straight across, and you can still do this, but I'm actually going to show you a way to make simplifying a lot easier. So you get 22/60ths, which we know is not simplified all the way because they're both even numbers. So we could divide them both by 2 and we'll get down to 11/30ths. But here's a quick way that you could do this, change this problem to make it faster. So anytime you have numbers that are, let me rewrite this. This problem actually is this. It is like 2 times 11 over 5 times 12 is what happens when we multiply fractions. You can actually cross out, not really cross out, just simplify this and this number, because 2 divided by 2 gives me 1, and 2 divided by 12 gives me 6. So this becomes 1 times 11, which is the 11, and 5 times the 6, which is the 30. And some of you will be able to see that just straight from the original problem. You will be like, oh, 2 can go into 12 6 times, and you'll be able to cancel that way and just go straight across. But I wanted to show you that quick way of simplifying. Okay, let's move on to a mixed number times a fraction. Okay, the mistake that most people make when multiplying mixed numbers or mixed number times a fraction is they think that they only have to deal with a fraction. So some people like to say, oh, well, this would be 3 and 8/35. But you would be wrong if you think that. That is not how we solve them. because you have to think that this right here is actually 3 plus 2/7 times that 4/5. So this is actually the distributive property that we learned about this year, where we're having to multiply this 4/5 to both of them. But I'm going to show you a much easier way than having to think of it that way. But if you want to do it this way, you are more than welcome to. But I'm going to show you a way where it is quick and simple. So the first thing you're wanting to do is change the mixed number into an improper fraction, because if you do that, then you are just back to fraction times fraction, and we're great at fraction times fraction. So remember the TX, 3 times 7 is 21, plus the 2 at the top is 23. So we have 23/7 times 4/5. Oh, and I didn't make this one that we can simplify, so unfortunately we do need to multiply straight across. So we have 35 and 23 times 4, so I know 3 times 4 is 12, 20 times 4 is 80, so that would be 92. And then to simplify, I have to think, well, how many times will 35 go into 92? I know it's more than once, because that'd be 35, and then that would be 70, and then the next one would be 105, so that'd be too much. So it goes in there twice. So I have to think of 92 minus the 70, which would leave me with 22/35. And that would be the simplified version too. You wouldn't be able to simplify that any further. Okay, so now let's take a look at a mixed number times a mixed number. So the first thing we're going to want to do is change them both to improper. I'm going to show you what not to do, because I still see a lot of people doing this. This is a big no-no. You do not ever just do the whole numbers and those and say you're done. This is so wrong. It's big X. Do not do that. Stop doing that. It's not a whole times a whole and a fraction times a fraction. You are multiplying the mixed number times a mixed number. Okay, so we have 4 2/3 times 5 3/7. So mixed number, 4 times 3 is 12, plus the 2 is 14. So we have 14/3 times, same thing over here, 5 times 7 is 35, plus the 3 on the top. 38. So the first thing I look at is I look to see, can I simplify it all? Well, I know 14 and 7 have a relationship. 7 can go into 14. So what I'm going to do is cross cancel. 7 will go into 14 2 times. 7 will go into 7 1. So now this makes this a lot simpler problem to work with, because 3 times 1 is 3. And then 38 times 20, well, 38 times 2. 30 times 2 is 60. 8 times 2 is 16, so that would be 76. And then we would just need to simplify. And this is where, in my head, this is what I'm thinking. I don't necessarily have to write it down anymore. But if you do, that's fine. So that would go in there twice. And then we have 16. 3 goes into 16 5 times. So we have 15. We have 1 left over. So our final answer would be 25 and 1/3. Great job, everyone. That's all the examples I'm doing for today, because I was trying to stay below 10 minutes. I'm pretty close. If you have any questions and you're in my class, reach out on Google Classroom. I'd be more than happy to help. If you are not in my class, you can leave a comment, and I'll be more than happy to create a example video for you as well. Have a great day.